Okay, yes, sir, on the left here.
I'm Robert Scoble, one of the first glass holes, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting my glass.
Robert, I really didn't appreciate the shower picture, though.
Here at Google I/O, several contextual things started coming out. We started seeing an API that's going to tell us whether we're walking or running or whatnot. Where are you going to take that in the future now that we have more sensors? And are you going to talk about the little sensor inside the Google Glass that watches our eye?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this is a big area of focus. I think you saw that in the presentations. I think really being able to get computers out of the way and really focus on what people really need. Mobile's been a great learning experience, I think, for us and for all of you. You have the smaller screens, you can't have all this clutter. I think you saw on the new Google Maps how we got all sorts of stuff out of the way. You know, there's like 100 times less things on the screen than there was before. And I think that's going to happen with all of your devices. They're going to understand the context. You know, just before I came on stage, I had to turn off all of my phones, right? So I'm not interrupting all of you. That's crazy. Right? That's not a very hard thing to figure out. So all that context that's in your life, all these different sensors are going to help pick that up and just make your life better. And I think that we're, again, only at the very, very early stages of that. It's very, very exciting. All right, let's take another question. Yes.
Hello, Larry. My name is Daniel Buckner. I have the opportunity to work at Mozilla on a lot of the web technologies with you guys here at Google. And I just, I saw a lot of the great web technologies you had here on display. And I know people had this question leading up to Google I/O, but are we ever going to see the web up-leveled in Android or subsume what is there now to be the operating system of mobile and your platform?
Sorry, you're asking about the future of the web.
Yeah, are we going to see it? I mean, Android right now, it runs on Java. It's a native platform. It's great in a lot of ways. Are we going to see the web and all the fantastic technologies you showed off here today be the center of that?
Well, I think, we've been really excited about the web, obviously being birthed from it as a company. And I think that, and we've really invested a lot in the open standards behind all that. I've personally been quite sad, I've personally been quite sad at the industry's behavior around all these things. If you just take something as simple as instant messaging, we've kind of had an offer forever that will interoperate on instant messaging. I think just this week, Microsoft took advantage of that by interoperating with us, but not doing the reverse. Which is really sad, right? And that's not the way to make progress. You need to actually have interoperation, not just people milking off one company for their own benefit. So I think Google has always stood for that. I've been sad that the industry hasn't been able to advance those things, I think generally because of a focus on negativity and on zero-sum games. So I hope we try to be on the right side of all those things, but we also try to be practical and look at what other people are doing and not just rely on our principles to shoot ourselves in the foot and our users in the process. So, I don't know how to deal with all those things. And I'm sad that the web's probably not advancing as fast as it should be. We certainly struggle with people like Microsoft. We've had a great relationship with Mozilla, I think, and value that deeply. I'd like to see more open standards, more people getting behind things that just work, and more companies involved in those ecosystems. I think that's why this conference is so important. But I wouldn't grade the industry well in terms of where we've gotten to. In the very long term, I don't think you should have to think about, as a developer, am I developing for this platform or another or something like that? I think you should be able to work at a much higher level, and software you write should run everywhere easily. And people like Mozilla should be able to add meaningfully to that and make platforms and other things. So that's how I would think about it.
Thank you.
It's a very, very complex and important question, though. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm from Colombia, and the only reason because I didn't quite to finish my law studies was thanks to Google. So I have dreamed in this question many times, and I would like to ask you how Google will let us protect our freedom of speech through internet. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think I mean, this is part of the area where business gets interesting, right? I think we, Google, pretty clearly have a strong desire for freedom of speech, for a free flow of information. And one of the main things we do is probably translate that into practice, in hundreds of countries around the world, and make sure we're talking to government leaders and making sure we're helping advance that. And our chairman, Eric Schmidt, has been kind of traveling the world talking about that, and I really applaud those efforts and thinking about that. So we're working very hard on that, making sure we're protecting your private information, making sure that we're ensuring computer security, which is required to make sure we're protecting your freedom of that, and making sure we're being as transparent as we can about the requests we get from government and things like that. So this is a big area of focus for us, and hopefully we can do a lot to help the world and move it along there. It's a very difficult and important issue also. Yes, other great questions.
Recently, Google Fiber was announced for there, and part of the marketing campaign is 100 times the speed, 100 times the possibilities. What do you see as the possibilities from that fast of internet?
Well, I mean, I think from an engineering point of view, it's just kind of a no-brainer. Like, I mean, we got started building data centers, and one of the biggest problems we had was network even in the data centers. And so I guess as a computer scientist, I just view it's kind of sad. We have all these computers out there, and they're connected to each other through like a tiny, 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 tiny little pipe that's super slow. And so in a sense, all the computers we have in the world, most of them are in people's houses. Most of them can't be used for anything useful. So, it's obviously ways to go from where we are now. We don't really have software that's designed to use those things yet. But we know if we build that capacity, we'll be able to use those computers for all sorts of interesting things. And even basic things like the bandwidth of your visual system, it's pretty high compared to the bandwidth most people have. And I think it's pretty clear we want to deliver bits to your eyes, just as a basic thing. So I'm really excited about what we'll be able to do and what you'll all be able to do as we get more people with super high-speed connections. And probably gigabits are just the beginning for that. What we really need are low-latency connections that operate at computer speed, whatever that is that you have inside of your house. So I'm really excited about that. So we're just getting started. All right, in the middle now. Yes, the black shirt there.
I'm Yaniv Telmor from Vancouver. We've seen Google move into some physical real-world products like Google Fiber and the autonomous self-driving cars and the renewable energy cheaper than coal initiatives. Curious if you can elaborate on further projects that Google is planning to get into regarding physical world type initiatives.
Yeah, well, my compatriot Sergey Brin, who last year arranged the skydiving, but this year did not. I mean, he's focused, Google X is focused on real sort of atoms and not bits. And part of why I just feel there's a lot of opportunity there. And, Sergey's having a great time doing that. That's, I think, a really, really fascinating and amazing job. I think that possibilities for some of those things are, incredibly great. Technology, if you look at technology applied to transportation, hasn't really started yet. We haven't really done that yet. So I think, and automated cars are just one thing you could do. You can do many, many other things. So I think we're very excited about that area. And we also think it's a way that the company can scale. I think that to the extent all of our products are interrelated, we actually need to do a fair amount of management of those projects to make sure you get a seamless experience, both as a user and a developer, that it all makes sense. When we do some of these other kinds of things like automated cars, they have a longer time frame and less interaction. And so I actually encourage maybe more companies to try to do things that are a little bit outside their comfort zone, because I think it gets them more scalability in what they can get done. And so I think we've been surprised also, even when we do things that are kind of crazy, like the automated cars, it turns out, you just saw the mapping stuff we finished with. The technology for doing mapping in automated cars turns out to be the same. And so we have a bunch of great engineers that just moved over from those efforts, and they did it naturally and scalably. So, and they're excited about it. And so I'm really, really excited about that too. So every time we've done something crazy, Gmail, when we launched it, I think we had 100 people in the company when we launched Gmail. And people said, "You're nuts, you're a search company. Why are you doing Gmail?" It's because we understood things about data centers and surveying and storage that we applied to email. And that was a great thing we did that. And so I think almost every time we've tried to do something crazy, we've made progress. Not all the times, but almost every time. So we've become a bit emboldened by that. And the good news is too, no matter how much money we try to spend on automated cars or Gmail in the early stages, they end up being small checks. So they don't really cause a business issue either. So I'm really excited about that. And I try to talk about that in my remarks. That's why I say I think we're at 1% of what's possible. Another question.
Yeah, hi Larry. It's Greg with DSky9. We're developing apps for Google Glass. And I was really excited to see all the new things that Google is providing, and also realized that it kind of trounced most of its existing businesses. I was wondering if you could speak to what you feel are the largest area of opportunities for developing on Glass outside of what Google will provide naturally. And a bonus question, what will be the production run for Glass for consumers?
Well, I mean, I have to ask Sergey that, but so I don't know what the production numbers will be. I think we're more focused on with Glass. Glass is a new category. It's quite different than existing computing devices. And so I think it's great that we've started on it. But I think our main goal is to get happy users using Glass. And so we put a bunch out to developers. I see a lot of people with them in the audience. We want to make sure we're building experiences that really make people happy. And so the team has tried to build the minimal set of things, just for practical sake, minimal set of things that will provide a great experience and make happy users. And then, we can get going and work on it for the next 10 years. And, every successive one is going to be better, obviously. So I think part of the answer is we don't know. I think the basic use cases we have around photography are amazing. I love taking pictures of my kids with Glass and movies and so on. And I find that, for me, that's enough. I have young kids. For me, that's enough reason to have Glass just there. I think if you didn't have young kids, you might not feel exactly that way. I'm not sure. I have young kids, so can't tell. Communications are also pretty amazing. Navigation is amazing. Certainly if you're walking, if you're in Manhattan or something, having Glass for navigation is unbelievable. I find it's really, really nice. And I also find that So navigation's amazing. Some of the core experiences we have, I think, are pretty amazing. Communications, phone calls, SMSs, voice. You saw the things we're doing around voice. It's amazing to always have the device there to do that. So I think ultimately a lot of your experiences can move to glass, and we're relying on all of you to figure all that out. We're trying to get the base thing to make happy users so we can get on with it.
We're aligned with that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, over here.
Hi, my name is Caleb Allen, and I was wondering what advice you would give to the rising generation of technologists. What would help technology keep moving at the pace it's been moving at for the last 5 or 10 years, and how would they do that responsibly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think for me, actually try to use Google a lot, and I research things really deeply. So, you know, before we get something started, I try to actually understand it. And I think, and not just really understand it, like understand the crazy people in the area. And Google's great for that. You can find the craziest person in any given area. And I think normally people do not do that. So I think you want to think about, you know, the base thing, you know, whatever it is. You know, we've been obviously working on smartphones a lot. They're relatively expensive now. And with Nexus 4, we tried to improve that a bit. But, you know, if you look at the raw material cost of a smartphone, you know, I guess it's mostly glass and silicon, tiny bit of silicon, a little bit of fiberglass. I don't know, the raw materials cost of it's probably like $1, you know, or something like that. I think glass is 50 cents a pound or something like that. So I know metals are 20 cents a pound. Phones don't weigh very much, right? So, and silicon is very, very cheap. So I think when I see people in industries like are making things, I ask this question, like, how far are you off the raw materials cost? And they never know the answer to that question. So I think kind of as an engineer or as a technologist, trying to go to first principles and say, you know, what is the real issue? You know, what is the real issue around our power grids, or what's the real issue around manufacturing, or whatever it is? I think people usually don't answer those questions, and as a result, most of the work that's done is very incremental. And we don't, because of that, we don't make the progress we need to. Now, that said, I mean, it's very hard. If you're gonna make a smartphone for $1, I mean, that's obviously like almost impossible to do. But I think, you know, if you took a 50-year time frame or something like that, you took a longer view, you'd probably start to make the investments you needed to, and along the way, you'd probably figure out how to make money. So, you know, I just kind of encourage non-incremental thinking and a real deep understanding of whatever you're doing. That's what I try to do. Yeah, all the way over on the right, and I'll make another pass.
I have a question about the future of Android. So with Oracle taking control of Java from 7 forward, how does Google advance Android when one of the core technical underpinnings is not necessarily in its control?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a difficult relationship with Oracle. I guess including having to appear in court, you know, as a result of it. So I think, again, I think, you know, we'd like to have a cooperative relationship with them. That hasn't seemed possible. And I think, again, probably money is more important to them than having any kind of collaboration or things like that. So I think that's been very difficult. I think we'll get through that. And I think obviously Android's very, very important to the Java ecosystem. And so we'll get through that just fine. Just not in an ideal way. Yeah, another question.
Hi, my name is Prashant. I'm an Android developer from India. I'm a heavy Google user. Most of my opinion, actually, I can trace back to a Google search. And as we saw today, it become more and more personalized and predictive. I kind of worry that it kind of enforce my worldview and kind of rule out the possibility of some serendipitous discovery of other side, you know. So any comment on that?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. People have a lot of concern about that. I'm totally not worried about that at all. And it sounds kind of funny to say, but that's totally under your control, and our control is cool. So I think it's very important to have a kind of wide worldview, to have education, all those kind of things. But the right solution to that is not randomness, right? So you can't really argue doing a bad job of returning whatever you wanted is the right way to educate you. It's just not. It'd be better to return exactly what you wanted when you wanted and use that saved time to have you read the news or read textbooks or books or other things that might be more general. So I think we can put that into the algorithms. So I think, I guess in my very long-term worldview, 50 years from now or something, hopefully our software understands deeply, what you're knowledgeable about, what you're not, and how to organize the world so that the world can solve important problems. People are starving in the world, not because we don't have enough food. It's because we're not organized to solve that problem. And our computers aren't helping us do that. So I think if you think about it that way, if you think about we need to make computer software and the internet that helps people solve important problems in the world, that will cause, as a side effect, for people to be educated about the things they should get educated about. And that's not the same as a demand. I'm asking for a particular thing I'm searching for. Those are different modes. You just got to make sure we're serving both modes and that computers can help you do that. So I could not be more optimistic about that. I think computers and software and things that you all write and we all write are going to help us solve those problems for people rather than just doing it at random. So, all right, next question.
Hi, Larry. I'm Azman from GDG Lead Brunei. It's great that Google has developed a lot of new technologies and allow us to live in a better way that we are today. My question is not about technology, it's just a basic question for the developers and the countries that I came from in the Far East. We developers have been trying to develop applications, but one of the main issue for us in many of the GDGs is that we can't sell, that's one part. The other thing is that I have been asked many times that why can't we buy paid ads? That's my simple questions. I hope it's a great opportunity to voice this one out to you, and I hope things can be done because I don't see any reason why, because people want to buy and they can use their credit cards. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, that's an area we've had huge focus on. So I think we've made a lot of progress. I think we'll make a lot more progress, but hopefully that's a very temporary problem and we get through that quickly. But thanks for bringing it up. Yes.
Hi, my name is Kevin Nielsen from New Jersey, and I was intrigued about your comment about the positivity and the negativity, and I'm very interested in helping other people be positive about technology as you are, and I'm interested in what your advice would be to help us sort of reduce the negativity and focus on positive and focus on changing the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think people naturally are concerned about change, and certainly not all change is good. And I do think the pace of change in the world is increasing. Part of what I would think about, I think that we haven't adapted mechanisms to deal with that. And maybe some of our old institutions like the law and so on aren't keeping up with the rate of change that we've caused through technology. If you look at, different kinds of laws we make or things like that, they're very old. I mean, the laws when we went public were 50 years old. And the law can't be right if it's 50 years old, like it's before the internet's. That's a pretty major change in how you might go public. So I think we need to, maybe some of you, or maybe the million people watching who love technology, maybe more of us need to go into other areas and help those areas improve and understand technology. And I think that's not happened at the rate it needs to happen. Yeah, thank you. And the other thing in my mind is we also haven't maybe built mechanisms to allow experimentation. There's many, many exciting and important things you could do that you just can't do because they're illegal or they're not allowed by regulation. And that makes sense. We don't want our world to change too fast. But maybe we should set aside a small part of the world. I like going to Burning Man, for example, which I'm sure many of you have been to. Yeah. Few burners out there. That's an environment where people can try out different things, but not everybody has to go. And I think that's a great thing too. I think as technologists, we should have some safe places where we can try out some new things and figure out what is the effect on society, what's the effect on people, without having to deploy it kind of into the normal world. And people who like those kinds of things can go there and experience that. And we don't have mechanisms for that. So those are the kind of things I would think about. I also think we need to be honest, and we don't always know the impact of changes, and we should be humble about that. I'm not sure getting up on stage and saying everything is amazing and so on is the right thing. Maybe we should launch things a little more humble way and see what the effect is and adapt as we go. So those are kind of my thoughts. So I think, yeah, way on the side here.
Larry, Ben Schachter at Macquarie. Healthcare impacts the society in so many profound ways and impacts the economy. What are the strengths of Google that you can bring to help improve healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great maybe segue from the previous question. I think it's been difficult. We had Google Health. We didn't make much progress on it. And I think primarily we found that all the issues were regulatory. And it's just very hard to get technological leverage there. So now I was talking about we're 1% of where we can be. That's by doing real amazing technological things. And, we found certainly in the kinds of things we were working on in healthcare, we weren't able to move beyond that due to all the kind of constraints that we were under. And so I think we'll see amazing things in healthcare, but I think there'll be things that have technological leverage like DNA sequencing. We're clearly all going to have that. It's going to cost $1 or whatever. You're all going to have your sequence, and something amazing will happen. I just disclosed yesterday my voice issues. I got so many great emails from people and thoughtful advice. And I realized, I had kind of notion like the stuff should be very private. And at least in my case, I feel I should have done it sooner. And I'm not sure that the answer is not true for most people. So I asked, why are people so focused on keeping your medical history private? The answer is probably insurance. You're very worried that you're going to be denied insurance. That makes no sense. And we should change the rules around insurance so that they have to insure people. I mean, the whole point of insurance is it insures everyone. So again, maybe we have a safe place where people can go and live in a world like that, where they make those kind of changes. We can see if they work, and then the world can learn from that and move on. But not everybody has to participate in that. Because I'm worried we're not making some of the fundamental changes we need to make fast enough. All right, maybe one or two more questions. We're going to run out of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm John Saragardi with Form and Reform, one of the Burning Man artists you invited here tonight for the after party. Thank you.
Oh, great.
My question, I'm very inspired to see that you've reached out to the educational aspect. I have a 6-year-old, glad to see that Google's moving that direction. My question is about women in the development community. I'm looking around and I don't see a lot here, and I'd like to know what we can do to encourage women to be here. It's a simple question.
Yeah, I mean, we've been super focused on that forever. I think Sergey and I, when we were interviewing people, we spent a lot of time interviewing women for that reason, trying to make sure our company didn't end up all male, which I think is a really, really bad thing. So I think, look, ultimately, the only answer is we have to start early and make sure we're getting more young women and girls really excited about technology. And I think if we do that, there's no question we'll more than double the rate of progress we have in the technology world. So we all need to do that. We're trying to help with that in any way we can, and thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, one more question.
Jeffrey Sika with the University of Michigan. While you had mentioned that regulation is usually the biggest problem trying to get technology into healthcare, I'm curious if you're going to be doing anything with DNA sequencing, considering you actually have all the horsepower behind it, and also image analysis with things like surgical slides and whatnot, because it seems like that's a really big area that we could get into to help people as a whole.
Yeah, no, I think those are good questions. I don't have anything to announce at the time, but we always look at these areas, but I think we have felt it's a difficult area for us to work in. I think it's certainly worth doing, though. All right, let's take one more. Yes.
Hello. I'm Josh Constein from TechCrunch. Could you discuss Google's plan for bringing the developing world online and what you see as the social, cultural, and political impacts of democratized access to the internet?
Oh, that's a really great question. One of the things I always talk about in the company, when I talk to the company, is that smartphones are going to basically be amazing in these places. And so you don't quite have smartphones, for example, going into India or Africa because they're just too expensive. The average cost of a phone in India make it down to those levels, and I think they will. That'll be the smartphone you have today, 2 or 3 years from now, will be in Africa and India. And that will be amazing. Because I find, I try to mostly use smartphones now just to make sure I'm living that future. I find I can get almost everything I need done. And unfortunately I don't get to program that much, but I can do most things I need to do to run the company on my phone. So I think that's pretty amazing to think that that can go to 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion, 6, that can go to 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion plus in not very long period of time. And I think we're probably, people are underestimating how fast that's going to happen. I think it's clearly going to happen very, very quickly. And I'm really, really excited about that. We're trying to help that happen quicker, but I'm very excited about that. So thank you all so much for spending so much time.
Thank you.